Welcome to the Lakers Nation podcast. My name is Trevor Lane. Today's show is brought to you by Harry's Razors. Head to harrys.com/Lakers for an awesome deal that I'll talk more about in just a bit. On today's show, we're going to be talking about some of the top picks in the NBA draft that the Lakers could be choosing between. And in fact, on our last show, I asked fans to head to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to our show. And in the review, they were supposed to explain which person they believe the Lakers should select with the number 2 overall pick. Got some great responses. One user named Shazam actually said that the Lakers should try and trade the pick, should hit up the Sacramento Kings, offer number 2 for number 5 and number 10, maybe even throw in the 28th pick if they need to. Jeff Hardy fan said that the Lakers should draft Lonzo Ball, which does seem to be the consensus opinion. And Workaholic said draft De'Aaron Fox. So that's actually a perfect set of responses for today's show because I've got Serena Winters and Hannah Kulik of LakersNation.com to talk all about Lonzo Ball versus De'Aaron Fox. We'll also get into a little bit of Brandon Ingram. So lots to talk about. Let's jump right into it. I've got both Serena Winters and Hannah Kulik of LakersNation.com here with me today. Thanks so much to both of you for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure thing, Trevor.
So the Los Angeles Lakers are in a pretty cool position here in the draft coming up. They were able to hang on to the second overall pick in the draft lottery, and by following Serena's Twitter feed, which is at Serena Winters, we actually found out that it was partially because of Serena that the Lakers landed the number 2 overall pick because you actually made the extra trip back home to get your lucky charm. Isn't that right, Serena?
That is correct. That morning I had to hop on over to ESPN LA radio and didn't think about the tank top situation. And I usually happen to wear this Lakers tank top every year, and it's brought me good luck. And after I confessed on air that I forgot to wear it, I felt so guilty that I went back home and got it on my way back, just in case.
Well, hey, it paid off. And Hannah, did you have any lucky charms that you turned to on draft lottery day?
You know what, this is going to sound kind of funny, but whenever I eat mac and cheese, good things tend to happen for me. So I was so nervous on that day. Literally all I could eat was Kraft mac and cheese, and it worked out. So it's still my lucky meal.
So I had a lucky pair of Lakers socks. Serena has a tank top, and Hannah has mac and cheese. But whatever it was, maybe it was the combination of all those three things, it worked. The Lakers have the second overall pick in the draft. So at this point, heading into the draft lottery, Serena, what do you think the Lakers need?
In terms of need, guys, I mean, when you look at this Lakers roster, it's not like there's one position that the Lakers need in the draft. I don't think that they see it that way, and I think for good reason. When you're going to the draft, you're going to want to pick the best available talent regardless of position. And so in terms of Lonzo Ball or Markelle Fultz, which is probably pretty clearly going to be the 1-2, I don't think that necessarily matters. You want to make sure that it's going to fit alongside Luke Walton. That's why you always hear about Rob Pelinka and talking about there being good character guys. And you want to make sure that it can fit along this young core. But I don't think the Lakers need to go into this thinking they need a specific position.
Agree with that 100%. Hannah, what's your take? Is there something that you think that they could really use on the floor, maybe more than something else, or is it just go for best player available?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Serena on that. I think for most of this, everyone just kind of assumes that the Lakers are going to get Lonzo Ball. It's just what everyone's been talking about from day one. It's what he's been talking about. It's what his dad's obviously been talking about. But, I think there are a lot of really other talented guys that the Lakers, I think are definitely interested in. I don't think it's quite as clear cut. There are guys like De'Aaron Fox and Josh Jackson that are really kind of giving, Ball, maybe a little bit of a run for his money. I still think at the end of the day we're going to get Ball, But I do agree with Serena in the fact that I think that we don't need to necessarily look for just in terms of position, but just overall more on how they're going to fit with this core, fit with Luke, and just really be able to, fit with this team.
Serena, you've been at the Lakers draft workouts recently, and they haven't had, from what we know, they haven't had Markelle Fultz or Lonzo Ball or De'Aaron Fox or any of the top guys in just yet. But have you managed to get any kind of sense of what it is that they're trying to find when they're putting players through these draft workouts?
So when you go through draft workouts, it depends how many they will allow you to do. Because sometimes these guys are only going to get one workout with the Lakers, and the Lakers would really prefer to do more than one. But of course, you're looking for the character, like they've been saying over and over again, to get just more of a feel for what type of person this guy is. But in terms of these workouts, Trevor, every workout is very different. So people need to realize that a lot of times it's not just the Lakers saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. They have to talk with the player's agent, and there's things that are allowed and that aren't allowed. The Lakers might request something people have been talking about a one-on-one workout, right, with Lonzo Ball and Markelle Fultz going head-to-head. To me, that's a complete pipe dream, because if you are Fultz's agent, or if you are Lonzo Ball's camp, you don't want that to happen, because what positive is that going to do for Lonzo Ball, right? So a lot of times the Lakers don't even get to see exactly what they want in those workouts. A lot of times it's just going to be the assistant coaches and that player going through drills, and there could be some limitations in terms of what they're actually allowed to do. So right now we don't 100% know what they've talked about in terms of what they are allowed to do in that workout. But usually how it goes is you've got the assistant coaches out there, like Mark Madsen, you'll have Keith out there going through different drills, and then hopefully you get a little bit of time where, maybe Lonzo's going up against one of the assistant coaches. But in terms of what they're looking for, draft workouts are hard, because you want to know how a guy is going to be defensively, right? But you can't simulate that in a draft workout. So a lot of times you have to rely on your scouting staff and what they've been watching of him all year long. The draft workout isn't necessarily that number one deciding factor. I can think back to Kristaps Porzingis, and when the Lakers were thinking about Kristaps Porzingis, and he didn't necessarily have a very good workout. I think I had heard that maybe he was a little bit under the weather and he just didn't perform all that well. And then look at him and what he's able to do now. So really these draft workouts are just another piece to the puzzle of them figuring it out.
Yeah, and from what my understanding is of a lot of these draft workouts and these meetings, it's just as much, if not more, about actually getting to talk to the players and get a feel for their personalities as much as it is to see what they do on the floor, because they have hours upon hours upon hours of footage of these guys on the floor, and one day of seeing them up close in person may not change their opinion on these guys that much. Is that accurate to assume?
Yeah, you have to remember that not only, like I said, they had these scouts that have been watching these guys, but they are going to do their due diligence and talking to every single person that they can get their hands on, that can get their opinion of Lonzo. And whether it's Lonzo or Markelle or Josh Jackson or De'Aaron Fox, they're going to be talking to the team managers, the equipment guys, everybody in the staff, so that they can really get a read for what this guy is. Because, it's one thing to go into a meeting or an interview and everybody puts on their best face. Everybody puts on that perception of what they hope that you think of them when you leave that room. But what really tells you out the true character of those guys are people that have been around them 365 days a year and can really tell you whether or not they are good people.
Yeah, that's something that's going to be a huge part of this process, and the Lakers are going to be taking advantage of every opportunity they can get to meet with these guys and talk to them. Of course, we're hearing the rumors now that Lonzo Ball is not going to be working out for the Boston Celtics, which, Lakers fans are probably giving a little fist pump over that. Pretty exciting stuff. He's refusing to work out for Boston, who has the number one overall pick, and he's just going to work out for the Lakers and then potentially teams after the Lakers. But as Hannah mentioned just a moment ago, it's not a certainty that the Lakers are going to select Lonzo Ball. And in fact, Hannah, you recently wrote a piece all about why the Lakers should consider taking De'Aaron Fox. Can you fill us in a little bit about that?
Yeah, in my opinion, De'Aaron Fox has two things that the Lakers could really use. He's a great defender. One could argue that he's the best defender in this draft. One could also make that argument for Josh Jackson as well, but he's a great defender and he's also extremely fast. So I think it's really important to look at, in terms of this draft, who we're going to have on this team in the future. If we're going to keep D'Angelo Russell in particular, who's going to be best playing with him? Because, a guy like De'Aaron Fox could really benefit with D'Angelo Russell because, D'Angelo Russell definitely has some pros and cons, but one of his cons is that he's not the fastest guy out on the court and he's not the best defender out there. So, when we play guys like Russell Westbrook or John Wall, there's always kind of that question to who's going to be able to defend them. And bringing a guy like De'Aaron Fox in there, that kind of solves that problem for me. So I think, De'Aaron Fox is definitely the dark horse in the competition. And after seeing, Kentucky play UCLA in the Sweet 16 and just what he was able to do and hold Lonzo Ball to only 10 points, I was really, really impressed with his performance. I thought, you can always really tell a lot by how a guy plays when, the pressure's on. And I think at that moment, that was probably one of the biggest games that both Ball and Fox had ever played. And to see, De'Aaron really step up and really shine was something that really impressed me. So I think, I'm going to be happy with whoever the Lakers select. I think they have, many guys that they could get that are going to be really great players. But, I think De'Aaron Fox could be, a dark horse in this competition for sure.
We're going to get back to more great stuff with Serena and Hannah in just a moment, but first I want to talk about shaving and Father's Day. Father's Day is right around the corner. I'm particularly excited for this Father's Day because this is my first Father's Day as a dad. But you know what? I know Father's Day can always be really difficult to shop for. At least my dad is. It's always hard to find something for him. Well, this year I'm getting him a shave set from Harry's Razors. Spoiler alert if you're listening to this show, Dad. Sorry. But Harry's Razors does a phenomenal job of providing quality razors to you. The shave is unlike anything I've ever had before. It's so close, yet so comfortable. It's really incredible stuff. And the best part is they've actually put together a very special limited edition Father's Day shave set. Now it comes with a storm gray razor handle, very classy looking, a chrome razor stand, which you can actually get engraved with your dad's name on it, a foaming shave gel, 3 replacement blades, and a travel cover. Plus it comes in this awesome box and you can even engrave that and include a personalized card for free. This is really phenomenal stuff. It's a great idea for a gift for dad. So all you have to do is go to harrys.com/Lakers and you'll actually get a special deal for fans of this show. Harry's will give you $5 off one of their shave sets. Now this is for a limited time, so you want to go there right away. harrys.com/Lakers, get $5 off and support our show and get a great gift for dad. It is a win-win-win proposition. Go check it out, harrys.com/Lakers. The defensive fit is certainly interesting, and Serena, we definitely watched all of last season. We saw the Lakers really struggle on the defensive side of the ball. Do you think the Lakers will really take a look at some of these other guys and really consider taking somebody other than Ball, or do you think Ball is just such the heavy favorite that they're going to wind up with him?
I think right now he is the heavy favorite, but I absolutely think that they are going to bring all these guys in with an open mind. And talking specifically about the defense, I mean, yes, the Lakers were actually pretty much the worst defensive team in the league last year. So we know that's an issue in an area they're going to have to address. However, these are young draft prospects, and to think that like one kid like a De'Aaron Fox is going to change the whole defensive mentality of the team, I think is a little bit naive to think that bringing in another young kid, even though he's a better defender than one of the other players, that's not going to fill this void 100% that the Lakers need. But no doubt, if the Lakers draft Lonzo Ball and say it's Lonzo Ball and D'Angelo Russell in the front court, I think offensively, Trevor, that could potentially be a great duo because we saw a lot last year where D'Angelo Russell had better games, and you could see where he matured a lot when he feeds off himself and he gets his own. He seems to make everyone around him better as well. A lot of times we saw he was better when he was off the ball. He was better when he was at the two, and then with Lonzo Ball in there, he's the opposite type of point guard. He's a type of point guard that could care less about getting his own and only wants to make other guys better. His transition game is good. He's good in terms of rebounding and pushing the ball, forcing turnovers and pushing the ball. So I could see him and D'Lo out on the fast break doing that. And then you think about, okay, a guy like De'Aaron Fox, yes, he's better defensively. But is that going to be the deciding factor for whether or not the Lakers are going to choose a guy like De'Aaron Fox over Lonzo Ball? You know, if you're going to choose defense, you might want to go with a guy more like Josh Jackson, who you could also make an argument for as one of the better defenders in this draft. So it's one of those things where, okay, yeah, you could say, well, it depends on whether the Lakers are going to keep D'Angelo or trade D'Angelo or what their roster is going to look like. Well, the fact of the matter right now is we don't know. And when draft day comes, the Lakers, if the Lakers haven't made any moves that they're going to know for sure, they can't necessarily say, if they haven't made a trade yet, okay, well, we know that D'Angelo is not going to be on the roster, right? So you have to take a lot of things into consideration when you're thinking about who you're going to draft. And I think that Fultz and Ball are the best talent guys in this draft. So it just would be hard for me to make an argument at the moment for Jackson or Fox. But that might change when they bring these guys in for those one-on-one workouts.
Definitely. And I wrote a piece recently for LakersNation.com about the duo of Russell and Ball and how much potential they have together offensively. Now, defensively, that's scary stuff. I mean, they are not great defenders, but again, that's, you know, we can't assume that they are finished products at this point, right? I mean, these guys could improve defensively. It's something that that could change, just as De'Aaron Fox could get better on the offensive end. We'll have to wait and see. One of the things that I noticed is that, at least to me, it feels like, and perhaps this is just because of the media attention that he's been getting, but it feels like Markelle Fultz and Lonzo Ball have a higher chance of becoming stars in the NBA compared to like Fox and Jackson and those guys who are great players, but it just feels like they're not quite on that same level. And being that the Lakers are a franchise that has long been driven by stars, I feel like you got to go for Fultz or Ball. And you know, me, I'm on Team Fultz. I've said it many times on this show. If Fultz somehow drops to the second pick, I think the Lakers need to not even let the clock start running. Just run up to the podium and select Fultz. Just take him, get him on the team, because I think he's going to be incredible. But I'd be thrilled to get Ball too. But I do think that they have.
Wait, Trevor, I'm curious now because you said that. I want to know your why.
My why? I think Fultz has. I believe that Fultz has less holes in his game. You've got less to, now, not on the defensive end. Defensively, Fultz has a long ways to go. His wingspan's fantastic. He's got almost a 6'10 wingspan, and he's only about 6'4. Pretty similar, actually, in terms of physical profile to D'Angelo Russell. But he's got some potential defensively, but on the offensive end, I think his ability to make shots is so impressive, especially off the dribble. His pull-up threes are phenomenal. I love the way he gets into the paint, and I think that as he's got teammates around him who can make open shots, he's got professional-level teammates, he's going to be doing a much better job at getting into the paint and then kicking out, which I think would be a big benefit to the Lakers' offense. So I have Fultz a little bit ahead of Ball. Would you agree with that?
Well, I'm just curious, too. Do you then see, we talked about Lonzo Ball and D'Angelo Russell in the backcourt and how we could see that working. You had said you wrote a piece on that. Would you then see Fultz and D'Angelo working in the backcourt?
Yeah, I think they're both talented enough to where it could still work. This is the one area that's a little bit tricky with this whole situation, because I think Ball and Russell is actually a better fit together than Fultz and Russell.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, you with me on that?
I'm with you on that. I mean, just because it seems to me like if you're gonna say with D'Angelo, the holes in D'Angelo's game are some strengths in Lonzo's game. So when you're kind of putting those puzzle pieces together, and the idea this is a positionless NBA and the system that Luke Walton's trying to run is this, you know, I mean, you can't call it the Golden State offense, but he's trying to run a similar type of style. Having two D'Angelo Russells versus somebody like Lonzo and a D'Angelo Russell, it, to me, just seems like a better fit.
I agree. I definitely will give you that one. I'm very much in the mindset of you take the best player, period, and you don't worry about fit at all. And if you think it's Fultz, then you go with him, and then you worry about fit later. If you think they're really close, if you think Ball and Fultz are 1A and 1B, and they're just completely neck and neck, then I think you start to bring fit into the equation. And for me, I've got Fultz far enough ahead of Ball to where I would take him, even though the fit isn't quite as solid. Hannah, what do you think about that? Are you more on the side of go with fit and you would lean towards Lonzo Ball if it was between Ball and Fultz, or do you take who you think is the best talent overall?
Well, I think that's an interesting point. I think you want to take the best talent overall, but I think fit is also extremely important. But with that being said, I really don't think that Fultz is going to be available. I think especially, now that we're hearing that Ball doesn't even want to work out for Boston. I don't know why Boston would ever draft Ball if you don't even want to work out for the team. I can't imagine why, you'd ever want to draft him to be your, franchise player or whatever. But I mean, I think it's interesting because, you do obviously want to go for the best player on the team or the best player, available. But then at the same time, you having fit and team chemistry is extremely important. So that's something that I don't think can be overlooked as well. So I agree with Serena that I think Ball and D'Angelo would be a little bit of a better fit than Fultz and D'Angelo, I think.
All right, and then we got to assume that, of course, D'Angelo is still on the team. We know The other day, Magic Johnson made some comments about Brandon Ingram actually being the one untouchable on this roster. Some pretty interesting stuff. And Serena, I know you just interviewed Brandon Ingram, which we can find on the Lakers Nation YouTube page. You just interviewed him. Can you tell us a little bit about that? He gave you a little bit of info on his workouts.
Yeah, one of the great things about Brandon is that he can recognize where his faults are, where his weaknesses are, and he is putting in the work and the time to get better in those areas. Brandon had talked to me about one of the things he wasn't happy with last year was his shooting percentage. As I'm sure a lot of people remember from last season, pre-All-Star break, Brandon Ingram really seemed to struggle quite a bit with that field goal percentage. And post-All-Star break is when we started to see him get a lot better. And what Brandon realized, which I think a lot of onlookers like us realized, is that he wasn't taking full advantage of his length, right? That he is a very lengthy guy and should be able to shoot over defenders no problem, but his shooting form was still so low in terms of where it could be. So he told me that one of the things he's been working on is really just shot mechanics, being able to shoot over defenders and wanting to do that specifically so he can increase his shooting percentage for next season. So you love that. He had also told me that his other goal is just to get stronger. And what I mean by get stronger doesn't necessarily mean get bigger. And I think Magic Johnson in that same interview at ESPN also said something similar, which is that they want Brandon to get stronger, but that doesn't mean he needs to get bigger. But it does mean he needs to be able to get in the paint with those and ones, right? Right now we're seeing him get pushed around a little bit. Once you put some strength on him, he can get to the free throw line after that. So like I said, one of the things you love with Brandon is he sees where his weaknesses are, and he's planning to work on that in the offseason.
Yeah, and I've heard great things. I'm sure you've been hearing these things too, Serena, but I've heard great things about Brandon Ingram's work ethic. So we know that he's going to be working hard. And just for reference, his field goal percentage last season was just 40% and only 29% from three, which, that was one of the big things that the Lakers loved about him heading into last year's draft, was that he shot 41% from three in college. So we would definitely love to see a nice uptick in that percentage next season. Now,
and last year too, pre All-Star break, it was about 36% he was shooting. Post All-Star break, it was 10% better, 47.5%. That is a huge uptick. Now his 3-point shooting didn't get much better after the All-Star break, but to see that overall he was shooting more and that he was 10% more effective post All-Star break, you love to see that.
Yes, that was great, and I think he even credited Magic Johnson. He said that Magic helped him with finishing around the rim, and that was one area that we saw a lot of improvement in that final stretch of the season. I mean, he even started dunking over people. I was rewatching one of the games the other night, and they were running plays to try to get him runs at the rim. It was just really impressive stuff from Ingram down the stretch. So a lot to be excited about. Now, I do want to ask both of you, with Magic saying that that Brandon Ingram is untouchable. Do you agree with that sentiment? Should Ingram be untouchable? Should no one be untouchable? Should there be other untouchable players? What do you think?
In my opinion, I agreed with Magic's statements. Brandon Ingram was the only player that I felt as well should be untouchable. I think he has so much potential. And I think what a lot of people fail to remember is that he's only 19 years old. He's not even going to be 20 until I think his birthday is like September 2nd or something like that. So early September. And he's just going to continue to get better. And, the strength is going to come. And, with age is going to come the strength. And I think his ceiling is so high. He's so long. He has so much to offer. I completely agree. I think he's the one player that is untouchable, in my opinion, as well. And I think something else that I'm really looking forward to seeing from him this season is that we saw a little bit post All-Star break is him playing more on the two. I think him playing more as a two was able to get him more involved in the offense because he had the ball more. And I think that is what gave him the confidence. And as we saw, he had a much better second half of the season than the first, obviously. So I'm really excited about Brandon Ingram. I think he has a lot of a really high ceiling and a lot to offer. I'm really excited for this upcoming season for him because I think he's going to make a lot of improvements. I know he's working really hard right now and really training a lot. And so I think he's going to be pretty special. And I completely agree with Magic's statements on that.
Serena, what about you? Where do you fall on that issue?
If the question was to Magic, hey, Magic, if there was one player you had to pick that was, let's say, untouchable, and Magic responded, then that it would be Brandon Ingram, that I would totally agree with him, because if there's one player on this roster that should be untouchable right now, I think that Brandon does have the most potential. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the actual statement and everything that he said, I don't love that he said not only that he's untouchable, but he also threw in there he's probably not a guy we're looking at moving ever. The fact of the matter is the kid's only played one season in the NBA, right? So it's great that they see all this potential in him, and I see the potential in him as well. But what's to say he doesn't, get injured and the Lakers realize that they might be better off down the road trading him away for somebody else? It was just one of those things where it was kind of like, wow, to already say that this once rookie last season, so I guess we can't call him a rookie anymore, is untouchable, was kind of interesting to me. And you also wonder what type of message that sends to the other young core. So like I said, while I agree with the fact that I think he is highest upside, the most potential to be a franchise star player, I was pretty surprised to hear him say that he wasn't he didn't say probably, but he also said not somebody they're going to look to move, and then said ever. So I was just a little bit taken aback by that statement.
That was my first thought too, was oh my gosh, what is D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle and all these other guys, what are they thinking right now when when Magic comes out and says that Brandon Ingram is untouchable, but everybody else, he sort of implies everybody else could potentially be moved. So that's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out with the team dynamic. Of course, these guys are professional athletes and they're used to this sort of thing, but I kind of wondered whether or not that was the right thing for Magic to say. And then you hit the nail on the head as far as him saying that he doesn't see moving him ever. I don't know that you can speak in those terms, or at least that you should. You can kind of paint yourself into a little bit of a box, because you're, like you mentioned, if something comes along down the line where it makes sense to move him, and then you do, then of course people are going to throw that comment back at you and say, hey, just a few years ago you said you wouldn't trade Brandon Ingram, and here we are. So interesting that Magic is making those comments, but at the same time, it's kind of cool to hear that he's got that kind of faith in such a young player, right?
Right. Maybe that means that Magic is doing that to maybe motivate him, because he knows that's what Brandon needs, because Magic himself obviously was a star in the league. So maybe there's some underlying meaning to him doing that. He's going to know that better than we are. But like you said, Trevor, my first thought was, I wonder what the rest of the young core is thinking right now and if that affects them. And if it does affect them, that might have been one of those things that you keep in-house. But then again, we're media and we love to hear it. So,
right.
We can't fault him for saying things that we're going to write about and we love to talk about.
Absolutely. And I did see that the young Lakers, along with Luke Walton, went to Disneyland the other day. So maybe that was to smooth things over. Hey, guys, yeah, I may have ruffled your feathers, but here, go have fun at Disneyland for a little while, and then we'll forget about all these comments, right?
Maybe so.
So one last thing I want to ask you before you get out of here. I know you've got to run. You've got a ton of things to do today. So you are at a lot of these draft workouts, and a lot of the Lakers players are showing up, and they're getting their own workouts in after the draft-eligible players or even the free agents they've been working out. And we know guys like Zubac has been there, Nance. Are you seeing those guys work on anything in particular that fans would want to hear that they're practicing right now?
Sure. One thing I noticed with Zoo is that he is really focusing on his footwork. From the last time that I saw him in the gym weeks ago, towards the end of the season, and thinking about his footwork then and what I saw last week, the 2 days that I was at the gym and saw Zoo in there, I could see a huge difference with that. And that's one of those things where Zoo is also a student of the game and is such a hard worker and will really listen and take things that other veterans or guys that have been around the league, or for example, 90-year-old Bill Burka, who's been working on him with that sky hook. He really is a student, takes all those things into consideration, and what you love is to see the improvements there. I was surprised. I was like, I can already see whatever Zoo's been working on has made a difference. So I'll say the one thing that really stood out to me at the gym was Zubac's his footwork.
Well, that's exciting because Zubac is certainly a fan favorite already. He just seems to have been welcomed with open arms into Lakers Nation, especially since he started working on Kareem's skyhook and everything. So that's awesome. That's great to hear. He's definitely a guy that I can't wait to see at Summer League this year. So before we get out of here, Serena, we know you do fantastic work on LakersNation.com. You've got the awesome videos that you do, and you've been writing up a few different pieces. Do you have anything in the works coming up over the next week or so that you want to let everybody know about?
Well, just that we're going to have a lot more draft workouts coverage this week, and while everybody might be off on Memorial Day, we will not be. We will be in that gym with those draft workouts, and we try to post as much footage as we are allowed to from them. So just stay tuned to the YouTube channel, and we will have a lot of draft workout coverage for you.
Yeah, that raw footage from the draft workouts is absolutely phenomenal. It's great to see the guys getting out there and competing in the drills. It's just fantastic coverage. We certainly appreciate that. And Hannah, you wrote last week about Lonzo Ball versus De'Aaron Fox. What do you have coming up?
Yeah, I actually have a piece that should be coming out soon on making a case for Josh Jackson as well. He's another player that I've been really impressed with. Magic Johnson also recently said in that interview as well, he raved about Josh Jackson. So I have an article about that coming out soon, hopefully. So definitely stay tuned for that.
All right, we definitely will. Fantastic stuff there. So I just want to say thank you to both of you. I know it's not easy on Memorial Day weekend to make time to come onto the podcast. But certainly appreciate it. Phenomenal stuff from each of you. Thank you both for making some time.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope you guys both have a great Memorial weekend.
Sure thing. You too.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. And, of course, you can find Serena Winters on Twitter at Serena Winters and Hannah Kulik at Hannah_Kulik. So that's going to about wrap things up for today. Of course, you can always find this show on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, the CLNS radio app, and, of course, LakersNation.com. Next time, we'll talk a bit more about the draft as we get closer to figuring out who the Lakers are going to take with that second overall pick. My name is Trevor Lane, and this has been the Lakers Nation Podcast.